Year 12, Lesson 4. So today I am in my hallway. Two reasons. One, it's the quietest place right now, and two, I was just getting a bit bored in the house, so I thought I'd try another room. So we're going to have a look at a 12-mark question today, and it's time to do this because we do have enough information now to answer this particular question. But I want to just go back over what we've looked at so far. So before we went to remote learning, we had a look at the Constitution and we made sure that we understood what the Constitution is telling us. So we know that there's a separation of powers in Articles 1, 2 and 3. Article 1, Congress. Article 2, the President Executive. Article 3, Judiciary. We know that there is a formal way of amending the Constitution through Article 5. And we know that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land because Article 6 has a supremacy clause in it where it says this Constitution is supreme. We know also that the Constitution contains a protection of people's rights, and they are the Bill of Rights, Amendments 1 through to 10. So for example, Amendment 1, the freedom to protest, the freedom to practice your own religion, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, Amendment 2, the right to bear arms, and so on. We also know that although they didn't explicitly write the word federal in to the Constitution, we know that it is implied through Amendment 10, which is our reserved powers. So anything not explicitly mentioned in the Constitution belonging to the powers of Congress or the President automatically go to the states. And that is a very big topic, and we will do that after Easter. We also know that there have been some amendments that have been repealed, and we know that there are only 27 because the amendment procedure is so difficult, the last one being in 1992. Also, we looked at the idea of vague language within the Constitution. So we always have to remember to say to the examiner that although it's codified, although the Constitution is entrenched, and although the amendment procedure in Article 5 seems difficult to amend the Constitution, or makes it difficult to amend the Constitution, there are ways of updating the Constitution, and this is through judicial review. Judges are able to interpret the Constitution, and they do this because there's so much vague language. And we've looked at words like necessary and proper, cruel and unusual, liberty, privacy, and it's up to judges to interpret exactly what those mean. We had a look as well then at the key principles of the Constitution. So you've had a look at the separation of powers. So Montesquieu said, in order to have a healthy democracy, you need to have a clear separation of powers. And that means that they're not all in each other's pockets, and it leads to a better system of checks and balances. A healthy democracy is where power is decentralised, it's dispersed, and no one person has all that power, because if they did, then they might become tyrannical. The only thing is, we have to remember to say to the examiner that it's more like they're separated in terms of their jobs. They actually share some powers. And sometimes that becomes difficult because gridlock can happen. But again, we'll come back to that in later lessons. You then, in your table, wrote down some examples of how people check up on each other. So, for example, the judiciary will look at acts passed by Congress, and they'll decide whether they are constitutional or not. They might... or Congress might say to the US President, you can't do X, Y and Z, we control the money, you're not doing that. The President might refuse to sign a bill, and you will do more of that when you have a look at the Congress section, probably with Mr. Bowman rather than me. So you'll come back to that, and you'll have a look at the power of the President to veto in a little bit more detail. Then we had a look at the principles. So just to make sure that you know that the most important principles of the US Constitution are separation of powers, checks and balances, protection of rights, and federalism. Almost forgot it. And federalism. So the first three we know about. And we know about those anyway from Year 12 politics. The last one, federalism, we'll leave that for a while. So today we're going to have a look at this 12-mark question. It's from the exam board, so it's one they set as a sample question. And let me just get it. Right, here it is. Examine the ways that the US and UK constitutions are similar. Now, the important words here are, or is, similar. Do not talk about any differences. You won't get any marks for it. They only want you to focus on similarities. And this is the same for all of your 12-mark questions in US politics. They will either ask you for similarities or differences. They won't ask you for both. So we're going to focus on the similarities. Now, when we first look at this seems difficult because actually we keep talking about how they're very different. So the US has a codified constitution, the UK doesn't. Judges are very powerful, the UK judges aren't. But when we look a little bit further, we see that there are some similarities. It doesn't mean they have to be exactly the same, they're just similarities. So I'm going to give you 3 points to focus on to make this a little bit easier. And the 3 points I would like you to focus on are the separation of powers, the protection of rights, and flexibility. Now, the fourth one would be federalism, but we can't do that at the moment. But we can focus on these because we know these ones. So remember, there's no introduction, there's no conclusion, there's no talking about differences in this one, only similarities. The first one, both the US and the UK Constitution have got a separation of powers. The US Constitution clearly has it in its codified constitution in Articles 1, 2 and 3, if you tell the examiner. The UK, while it doesn't have all three branches clearly separated, the judiciary is. So there is some degree. So there is a small similarity there. In terms of the protection of rights, we know that the US Constitution has a Bill of Rights in Amendments 1 to 10, and that the rights are protected through that. And remember that they're codified and they're entrenched. And also, while we don't have a codified constitution in the UK, we do have Acts of Parliament that protect our rights. So, for example, the Human Rights Act. And we looked at cases in Year 12 where the Human Rights Act had been used to challenge government. So, for example, the Belmarsh case. So you can put that in. So our rights are protected. And the final one, the sun's coming in, flexibility. So both the US and the UK Constitution do have a degree of flexibility. We know that the US one is difficult to amend through Article 5, but it can be interpreted by judges. So it's very vague, and some words can be stretched as far as they need to be. And this, in the UK as well, it's flexible in that all we need to do to change our constitution is to pass an Act of Parliament. And we pass that Act of Parliament with a simple majority in Parliament. So it's really, really easy. So you tell the examiner that we've been able to change our constitution through recently, in the last 20 years, through the House of Lords Act, the Constitutional Reform Act, the Fixed Term Parliaments Act. So they've all changed the constitution really, really easily. In the US, they've updated it by introducing the right to get married. Now, I've given you most of your 12-mark question there, but you have to go in and you need to go and find some examples. So you've got the AO1, separation of powers, protection of rights, flexibility. Explain what they are and then give me your examples. I would like these 12A. This is going to be your lesson on Monday. So I'd like you to send those in, or don't send them in, put them on SharePoint. And 12B, this is going to be part of your Easter work so that you're at the same stage as 12A. Try and get it done, as soon as possible while it's all still in your head, and then it's over and done with. Over Easter, I'm also going to set you a little bit of reading. I don't want to set too much because we'll start federalism when you get back. So I just want you to have an idea about what it is. In terms of submitting these, please, a reminder, could you please go into your SharePoint folders? I've given you all your own folder. can you please number them? Lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. So lots of you have used SharePoint. Most of you now, I think, have put your work onto SharePoint, but only some of you have put them into subfolders. And I can't go in and scroll down and just find the right document when they all just say scannable, 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 scannable. So please make a folder, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, and this one is lesson 4. I will mark these when you send them in. So please write them on a Word document and I'll send them back with comments at the bottom and a mark. The other work that you're doing, I'm having a look at that. The same as if I did a folder check. I would get your work and I would have a look just to see that you're making your notes appropriately. They don't need marking in the same way, but the 12 marker as an exam question, I will mark those and I'll give those back to you. Somebody asked me about the 12 markers you did before Easter. I left those in school, so I'm really, really sorry. I am in school. I'm working with the key worker children over Easter. So if I can get into my classroom, I will get those for you. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get into my classroom and I'll be able to give you your marks then. Okay, so any problems, please do email me, IM me, Skype me, whatever you like, and give me feedback as we go. I'm glad the videos are working for most of you, and Skype as well. And I'm really, really pleased to see how hard all of you are working and how seriously you're taking it. So take care, and I hope everyone at home is healthy as well.